A Court of Mist and Fury, Sarah J Maas' second book in the ACOTAR series. Everyone's favorite fairy romance. You either love to love it or you love to hate it. I'm somewhere in the middle. But in my last video where I did a review of the first book, I came to the conclusion that all the haters were being a little bit dramatic, guys. This book is not utter garbage trash like he claimed it was. I get the feeling, right? If something is popular, you inherently want to dislike it or be against it because you want to feel unique. You want to feel special a little bit, right? Because we're all walking on the treadmill of similitude, right? We got our routines and we're all going through the same problems, but we think in our heads. It's like when I think, the thoughts are in my head though. I hear my head, but I can't hear anybody else's thoughts, which makes me I'm better, right? I'm a cut above the rest. I'm here to tell you this, you are special, but that doesn't mean the book sucks, guys. It's just a middle of the road, good time, fun romp, right? If you like a little bit of romance, you like a little bit of fantasy, completely passable as a book. I had moments that I very much enjoyed, but does the sequel stand up to my scrutiny? It's the most important test to pass, guys. And I'll say this, never before have I read a sequel so strange, so dramatic in its character twists rather. Because listen, I'm not a stranger to secrets being revealed in the book, like stuff that our main character is not privy to, right? But all of the characters, and for those of you that didn't read the first book, I'm going to be spoiling the heck out of that, and even this book too. So I'll give a recap for those who didn't read the first book and don't care to. Beauty and the Beast, right? I hate the fairies. I'm a bear guy. I am a fairy, and you're my new captive. Oh no, hate the fairies, but we have to fall in love to break the curse. They fall in love. Evil witch captures them. You're my captive now. Oh, the power of love. Human sacrifices herself to save a creature that she grew up hating, the bear boy. They save each other, fall in love, happy ending. Very, very basic plots there, right? And then there's a character that comes in. He's literally the king of darkness. He's like a sleazeball. He's like, oh, I like you, human. And she's like, ew, sleazeball. And I'm like, that guy sucks. And everyone's like, no, he's the best character. I'm like, what? He's a sleazeball. Everybody says so in this book. But they're like, read the second book. Second book rolls around. Our bear boy Tamlin, suddenly a tyrant, it's like Beauty and the Beast, but he transforms back into a human and is still the angry self. She's like, I have the power of all seven gods on my side. I was granted, I'm the most powerful being on the planet. He goes, yeah, but you're like a woman, so stay inside. And then his witty best friend Lucian, who used to be wisecracking, oh, human, right? This book he's all yes, Tamlin, whatever you say, Tamlin. Tamlin's just rude. He locks her up. He goes, don't you like painting, little girl? Go paint on the wall while I do man things, because you're a woman. And she's like, did you forget that I was traumatically killed and I sacrificed myself? I had to go through all these Hunger Games trials to save your life. Yeah, but that was last book though. Now I'm a man with all my powers back. Very, very strange. His character went down the toilet. Lucian's character, no personality. It all got sucked out of him. He went from witty best friend to doormat. In the span of 30 pages in the second book. First 30 pages of the second book. And then we go to Rysand, our king of darkness, the ultimate sleazeball, who everyone's you're going to love in book 2. Yeah, you're right. I did love him in book 2 because it's oh, I'm a sleazeball. Well, guess what? It was an act. I'm charming. And guess what? I'm the king of darkness, but I love harder than anybody else ever. And you know who I love? You, Feyre. And darned if they don't fall in love, guys. Classic bad boy motorcycle type fall in love, right? King of darkness and little human girl who really, if you thought first book was enemies to lovers, try enemy-er to lovers. Loverers. They hated each other even more than she hated Tamlin in the first book. And she falls in love again with a different fairy, guys. And it's I feel a little bit, I don't know how I feel about this, right? Because there's such dramatic shifts from all the characters. I love Tamlin in the first book. Turns into a tyrant. You can't like anything about him in this book. Rysand, you couldn't like anything about him in the first book. Now there's nothing you really can hate about him. All his motivations make perfect sense. I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like I was deceived by the author, because it's like, yes, there was information that came to light that changes how you think about these characters, but I don't feel like there was a lot of foreshadowing to it, so I kind of just felt like lied to, right? It's like you're reading Lord of the Rings, and it's like, Sauron, he's so evil, bro. He's got the One Ring. The orcs are slaughtering everyone. And then the last book, like the last like half, it's like Sauron's like, yeah, but like Gandalf was evil. He did this. I was trying to undo it the whole time. And you're like, what? No way. That doesn't really make sense, because we spent so much time with Gandalf and the good guy, and like, but you have leads the army. It's like, yeah, but like I secretly have like an even nicer Rivendell in my backyard, like an elf homeland. Do you want to see it? Right? Oh wow, you're right. You are protecting such great and good, and you love so deeply. And then Sauron and Frodo kiss. That's what it kind of felt like. And like I said, all the reveals do make sense within the character. They do like redeem them. Like if these things are true about the characters, and with all the context, the way that these characters are behaving, I do think makes sense. I think Tamlin is a very complex character now, because the way that he acts, like I could see what Sarah J Maas was going for with like, he's so obsessed with Feyre that he can't let her go, and he has to keep her locked up because he's so terrified of losing her again. I completely understand that. It just feels like all of the good parts of the characters that we liked in the first book like are non-existent at all. Or maybe it's like we're shedding new light on them. It's like, oh, you were kind of toxic in the first book. I get that. It was such like a whiplash. So like I had to Google, I'm like, is this book a dream? You know what I mean? And then you read the forums, it's like, oh, character assassination. I could see where people are coming from, because it's a very stark betrayal of like everything you thought you knew about a character. It's like with this context, it's like they're the reverse. And even the structure of the book itself is kind of reversed from the first one. So in the first book, it was like romance, Beauty and the Beast. The last act was like fantasy, save the day, fight the bad guys, fight the monsters. And I felt like the romance part of the first book was stronger than the fantasy half. I thought the fantasy half was kind of like, okay, let's get back to like the character stuff. This one is kind of reversed. We start very, very hard fantasy. The romance between Rhysand and Feyre is more like naturally building. Like they go on a lot of fantasy adventures together. Their dynamic starts to like develop. And I feel like overall they do feel like a more natural couple, even though like, because like the first book, it was like Bear Boy walks up, she goes, wow, that's a hot guy, but I hate you because you're a monster. But then like fall in love. This one was kind of like, we're gonna have a bit of banter, and like they just banter and they go on adventures, they save each other's life, and like they learn about each other's backstory, and eventually they start like having very graphic romantical intercourse. But the first half is all fantasy. I thought the fantasy stuff was very, very strong. I thought the world was built up in a nice way. And then the second half really explores the romantic elements. They like fall in love, they get married, and they become mates. But like the first book, I think that the first half was stronger than the second half. So it's kind of the reverse in the sense that I thought the romance was stronger than the first book in terms of like their characters developing, Beauty and the Beast. Second part, although I think that Rhysand and Feyre's relationship is better, it kind of made me uncomfortable a little bit, because there's a lot of like steamy, smutty, intimate scenes in the second half, which is like not really my thing, but I understand why people like them. It's like, wow, man, they're really getting into it. Like they really get into it, guys. But then it'd be like there's parts where it's just like they're like walking, and it's like, oh, and she's like just like staring at him, thinking of the things that she wants him to do, and like they share a mind link. So they're like, and some of it was so intimate. And maybe people really like this part, where there was part like, because I understand like the steamy stuff, like if you're like that kind of reading stuff, you get into it. But there were parts where I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be here. I feel like I am intruding. I literally felt like, and maybe that's good writing or is that bad writing? I don't know. They were like talking about each other in like a very graphic way. I felt like I was intruding. Like they were gonna like look out of the book page and be like, you're still here? Creep, weirdo, get out, we're doing something intimate. And I would have been like, I'll happily oblige. Please go on, invite me back in when the magic starts again. Because it made me uncomfortable, because they were so intimate with each other. And I do think they kind of like, their relationship does build, but then it really goes like 0 to 100. It's like, will they, won't they? They did, it's done. Oh, how have they done it? You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, yeah, it's there. Not really for me personally, guys, but I think that romance, because in the first one, it's kind of like, it's obviously set up as like, they're going to get together. This one's kind of strange because she's like, Tamlin's still in the picture, but like they really isn't utilized in this book other than like the threat of him. I don't know. It was very strange, guys. I can't tell if I liked the complete like turning on its head of the series. I do think the book ends on an interesting note because with the first book in mind, all they went through, how the second book ends, spoiler alert, she's back with Tamlin under the guise of like, yeah, you're right, he is evil, King of Darkness, I hate him. But Tamlin like is like so deluded, he thinks that like she's telling the truth. It's setting up a lot of interesting things. I think I'm more interested in the fantasy part now than the romance part, although it is setting up some spicy drama, guys. I don't know if this review made any sense. Overall, I think I like this book better than the first one. I think it's more solidly written. I always love a good sequel because you don't have to set up the world, set up the characters. We know Feyre, we know what she's about. I think she really shines in this book, especially since she got some powers now. She can hold her own. And this is really like, I feel like this one was more of like a coming into herself story. I think I liked her a lot more in this one because the first book's like, she really, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're a human in front of like magical beings that can like make things in midair. She's a lot more capable in this book. I liked her character more. Rysand, yeah, I like him. Sad, accept defeat. But, who knows? Maybe in the third book, there'll be another reveal and like everything will be reversed. You know what I mean? That's why I feel like I can't really like trust anything I've been presented because if I had to guess, is it going to be a great Tamlin reveal and my boy's going to be redeemed. And then I'll be right in the world when our bear boy comes back into the picture. But let me know what you guys think of this book. I think, I don't know. It's so strange. I don't know where it's going now. Because if the characters can flip on a dime, and just to reiterate, I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. Because the context of the story, if you haven't read the second book, if you haven't read any of these books, it's not like the characters are acting out of character. There's reveals about the characters that like you reinterpret their actions in a completely different way. Strange, guys. The strangest I've ever seen. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hopefully you ACOTAR lovers come back in the chat and let me know that I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm just lost in the world. But be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and you want to see more like in the future. I'm invested, I guess. I'll finish the trilogy, and I think there's a spin-off. I don't know if I'm reading the spin-off, though. That's a little bit too much for me. But thanks for sticking around.